Good morning, everyone. Welcome to CWM. Today's mini seminar topic would be 10 things to avoid while applying mortgage loans. Today's main speaker would be Hayden Choi, but also Brian Chung, the CEO, will give us introductory speech. Okay, so welcome to our CWM again, Mr. Chung and Mr. Choi. Okay, you can go ahead.
Okay, morning. This is actually Brian from Prime Mortgage, along with Hayden Troy, and I'm seeing one of our loan officers, Jessica and Justin, is also participating in this meeting this morning. So we would like to just say, obviously, like I'm sure most of you guys already know who we are. So basically, we're licensed mortgage brokers in state of New Jersey and Texas. So basically, what we do is we generate loans for residential, especially in residential home mortgages. And basically, what we offer you guys is what we offer to the clients then is that we offer the lowest possible interest rates for nationwide wholesale rates. And along with that, we don't charge any like bank fees or any like broker fees, or there will be no hidden costs whatsoever. Third thing will be like we specialize in home mortgages only. So we do time to time commercial loans or SBAs or any like home equity line of credit kind of the programs, but mostly we specialize in home mortgages, and we cover the full documentation, conventional 30-year, 50-year, and or 5-year, 7-year ARMs, and basically non-QM. No doc programs or bank statement loans or like any non-conventional loans, we do cover that also. Also, another bright side of working with us is because we're also working with Mr. Lee's Stephen Lee's case, so we can do closing within like 2 weeks or so if that's the must. We can option to do the fast closing within like 2 weeks. That's really fast closing. Also, in this time of the year, I'm sure like all the people getting like high rates above like 5% or so. So maybe you might want to contact your previous clients who doesn't own any mortgages on their current value homes. Maybe we can contact them and offer them like some sort of a cash out refi or anything to get them like a minimum down payment, like low as 3% to get the new home started. So just keep that in mind. Client have no mortgages, but they're willing to buy second home or investment purposes. Anything we can get them lowest 3% down. We can do the cash out refi on their no mortgage on their homes. Another thing is that we do work with our client and agents and attorneys who's involved in this case. We work with them 24/7, mortgage loan processing. We keep them update their status like 24/7. Basically, we work all day, all weekend. We don't just get the loans and we get to the closing, but communications and the following status is very important, as you know. Like dealing with the one cases in this market right now is very important. So we don't just take loans and we don't just like get it, sign up and just not working with them or communication with them. We work with you and we work with our clients. We work people who's anticipating in this cases. And I just wanted to make sure we are licensed in mortgage, specialized in state of New Jersey over 15 years now, and we have 6 licensed mortgage loan officers in our office, and we do have 2 more processors. So we're not just one like unlicensed or capital or finance. We specialize and we specialize in residential mortgages. So I just wanted to pass you out if there are any like new agents in the seat, and we just wanted to let you know guys that we are specialized in mortgages, and all of our loan officers are licensed, and we're all educated to do this business with you guys. So I'll just pass over this to the Hayden for next 10 things to avoid while applying mortgage loans for the client. It's kind of like good tips that you guys should know before going into any like deals. So in while processing it, you don't panic or you don't just get a like last minute or something. So like people should know about this 10 basic things to avoid while applying the mortgage loan. So Hayden will take care of it from now. And if you have any other further questions or anything, just feel free to like contact us after the Hayden go over like all this 10 things after, and then we will have a short Q&As after that. That's it for now.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. My name is Hayden. I'm a senior loan officer here at Prime Mortgage. And today I will be going over, as Brian mentioned, 10 things buyers should avoid doing when applying for a loan. Some of these items are somewhat self-explanatory and a bit repetitive, but nonetheless, I'll go over everything here on the list here. First thing, the accruing new debts. This is somewhat very critical because it could definitely directly impact your eligibility. When you obtain a new line of credit, for instance, auto lease, auto finance, you're essentially adding a couple $100s on your liability here, which could make a big difference on your debt to income ratio. So this is something that you definitely want to avoid. This is somewhat self-explanatory. I mean, this is a no-brainer thing that I don't even bother telling my clients sometime beforehand because it's just a no-brainer thing. But you definitely want to avoid doing auto lease, auto finance during the loan, because that additional couple $100s on your book will make a huge difference on your ratio. And worst case scenario, it could impact your eligibility. So definitely you don't want to do auto lease, auto finance during the loan process. Yes, and the second thing would be spending money you need for closing. Now, this is also sort of self-explanatory. Obviously, if you spend the money that you put aside for closing, how are you going to come up with that money at closing table, right? So this is something that you should definitely not do. But one of the requirements for the loan process in and of itself is to verify or validate your assets, meaning you need to be able to show the lender, verify to the lender that you have the down payment, you have the closing costs all in your checking or savings account. So if you spend that money for closing, you'll have to come up with that money again in as a form of a gift or I don't know, additional payroll or like I said, another form will be a gift. But you're essentially complicating things by spending that money that you should really be setting aside for closing. Like I said, one of the requirements is to actually verify all the available assets that you need to be able to tell the lender, hey, I have all the down payment, I have all the closing costs. So in terms of the assets, I am good to go. But if you're spending that money for closing that you put aside for closing, obviously you will need to redo that verification step. So this is something that you definitely want to avoid, sort of self-explanatory, but because it's on the list, I'll just go over. I'll just go over it real briefly. The next three things are pretty much in line with maintaining your credit score. The first thing would be the falling behind on bills. Obviously, you want to keep paying your bills, because once you have a late payment, and if that late payment history appears on your credit report, I should say, that's going to stick on the report. That will be permanent on your report for the next 7 years. And obviously, once you have that late payment history, chances are your score is going to go down 40 to 50 points right away. So you never want to fall behind on bills. You definitely want to keep paying your bills. Now, this is essential not only during the loan process, but in general. You'd never want to have late payment history on your credit report because that will stick on your report for the next 7 years. And obviously the scores will be impacted negatively. Maxing out credit cards is another thing. In general, the rule of thumb is to maintain less than 30% utilization, regardless of what the limit is. Regardless of if the credit card has a $1,000 limit or $10,000 limit, you always want to maintain that 30% below balance in order to maintain your credit score or improve your credit score for that matter. So you never want to max out credit cards because that will definitely negatively impact your score. Last but not least, closing a credit card account. Now, people might wonder why this would, be something that you guys want to avoid. If you close a credit card account, you're essentially deleting that credit history. So let's say you opened up a credit card like in the year 2010. Once you close that credit card account, you're essentially deleting that 12-year credit history from that credit card account itself. So this doesn't negatively impact everyone, but if you're someone with a credit card with a credit history like less than 5 years or 4 years, instead of closing a credit card account, you can just leave the card as a zero balance and just leave it as is instead of closing the account, because like I said, closing the account, that will delete your credit history and ultimately lower your credit score. So instead of closing the account, you want to just, if you're not using a credit card, you can just keep that, you can just not use a credit card and just leave it as is. Now, if there's like an annual fee on the credit card, now that's something different. Then obviously if you're not going to use that credit card, you might as well just close that account. But you definitely don't want to do that during the loan process. You can do that after closing, just to avoid that scores being lowered, because it would definitely impact your score as well. Closing account, whether that would be a credit card, mostly it's a revolving credit card accounts, but yes, you definitely don't want to close the account during the loan process, especially. Switching jobs is another thing. Now this you don't necessarily need to avoid, things come across unexpected, right? So sometimes you come across where you do need to switch your job. And if you do, I definitely recommend switching jobs at the early stage of your loan process. And in general, people switch jobs for a better pay, right? So obviously, if you're going to have to switch your job, you might want to switch to a job that gives you better pay. If you're, for whatever reason, if you switch to a job with lesser pay, then you could potentially run into a problem where obviously your income is going to be lower. Then that's going to definitely impact your ratio. So you never want to switch jobs, especially to a job that gives you lesser pay. But when you're doing it, when you have to switch your job, you definitely want to do it during the beginning of your loan process, because you'll have to submit your first pay stub to the lender. So let's say, for instance, you're closing at the end of June, right? But you start your new job on June 22nd or whatever. Then chances are, if you're going to receive that biweekly pay stub, you're not going to receive that pay stub before closing. So that you could potentially run into a problem where you would have to postpone your closing, because you definitely need to have that first pay stub available, which is why I am sort of emphasizing that if you are going to switch your job, you should do that at the beginning of the process, so that you'll have that first pay stub available to submit to the lender. And obviously, you never want to switch your job to, like I said, to a job that gives you lesser pay, because that's something that you're not going to want to do during the loan process. Making major purchases. This is somewhat in line with number 2, pretty much, but you definitely don't want to make any major purchases, just because, I mean, if you're going to spend that credit card, if you're purchasing your credit card, you're essentially bringing that balance up, which could negatively impact your credit score at the end of the day. But if you're going to use, maybe, I don't know, your debit card or cash, then you're essentially using your available funds that you might have put aside for closing or down payment. So then you'll have to come up with that additional fund, whether that would be a gift or anything. What I'm trying to say is you have to re-verify to the lender and say, hey, I do have this money. So you definitely don't want to make any major purchases during the process, just because it could negatively impact your in multiple ways. Switching banks is another thing. I mean, you could technically switch banks, but you don't necessarily want to do that, because you'll have to provide additional documents to the lender. You're going to basically have to verify all the fund that's being transferred from one bank to the other. The most convenient way to go about is to have all the available funds into one checking account, one saving account. That would be the easiest way. But I know people don't necessarily have all the funds available in one account. They usually have money spread over, multiple accounts, and that's fine. Then what you want to do is you want to, instead of transferring all those funds into one account, you're going to have to do that at the end of the day. But in order to save, time and paperwork, you want to just maintain those funds into multiple accounts. And what you want to do is maybe like a day or two before closing, you might want to transfer all the funds into one account. What I'm saying is, if you're going to transfer during the loan process, it makes a lot of work where you're going to have to transfer pretty much every, transfer from the recipient account to the donor account. You're going to have to provide all the checking account to transfer transaction history. So you're overcomplicating things. So the most convenient way is to verify asset is to just have all the funds available into one account. But if you have money spread over all the multiple accounts, then you can just keep it that way, and maybe have the funds transfer maybe a day or two before closing. But yes, you could technically switch banks, but you definitely don't want to do it during the loan process. Co-signing on a loan is another thing. Obviously, if you co-sign on a loan, that essentially becomes your own liability. So let's say you co-sign on a auto lease for your daughter or your son. That payment will essentially be your responsibility. So you definitely don't want to co-sign anything during the loan process. But let's say if a client comes up to me and tell me that he or she co-signed on a auto lease last year for his son or his daughter, then we could technically not remove that liability, but we could have that liability not count towards your own liability if we do provide the 12-month statements verifying that it's someone other than you that has been paying that liability. So if you already had co-signed on a loan, it's not the end of the world, so long as you can prove, verify or validate that it's actually someone else that's been paying that whatever that is. And you in most cases you do need 12-month statements to verify that this is really not your own liability. Then we could actually deduct that liability and not count towards your debt to income ratio. So but during the loan process, you definitely don't want to co-sign, because you're not going to be able to provide that 12-month statements or any verification that this is not something that you will be responsible for. So definitely during the loan process, you definitely don't want to co-sign anything. Making big bank deposits. This is somewhat important as well. Usually anything more than 50% of your income would have to be sourced, meaning you'll have to provide a check, or you'll have to provide some sort of a verification to source that fund. So this is something that I always tell my clients, that you definitely don't want to, first and foremost, you definitely don't want to make any cash deposit account. Hands-on cash deposit is the worst thing that you could do, because cash deposit, there's just no way to source it. So what the lender's going to do is if you make a $5,000 cash deposit on your checking account, the lender's not going to view that $5,000 as your own assets. So that could potentially create a problem. So whenever you need to make a big deposit, you have to do it via check or a wire transfer. That way you can source it to the lender and say, hey, this money came from this person, or this money came from that person. You know, obviously you could, we could do a gift letter for that, but if you make a cash deposit, there's just no way to go about that $5,000 that deposit will essentially not be counted towards your own assets. So that's something that you should definitely avoid. But whenever you do need to make a big deposit, you might want to do that as a check or a wire transfer. But anything in general, any deposit that's greater than 50% of your income would have to be explained to the lender. So definitely, you definitely want to avoid cash deposits, but you could receive a check or wire transfer from a donor, and we could definitely do a gift letter for that. So those are the 10 things that I wanted to talk about. If you guys have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
Okay, so yeah, so basically Hayden covers all the top 10 things. I just wanted to let you know, guys, that my Korean is actually better than English. So I'm just gonna quickly run over this 10 things in Korean. So number 1, accruing new debt. 절대로 새로운 융자 신청 전이나 아니면 융자 신청 중에 절대 새로운 어떤 부채를 생기시면 안 됩니다. 예를 들어서 학자금 융자 코사인 한다든가, 새로운 자동차 리스, 아니면 뭐 퍼스널 론, 이런 거 중간에 받으시거나 융자 진행 중간에 받으셔도 은행에서 알 수 있습니다. 절대 이런 거, 그러니까 손님께서 뭐 융자 신청할 건데 뭐 다른 거 지금 뭐 론 같은 거 받아도 돼요, 자동차 사도 돼요, 안 됩니다. 만약에 꼭 사셔야 되거나 그런 거 있으시면 론 오피서랑 먼저 상의하시고 debt to income ratio DTI 계산하시고 그 다음에 이제 진행하시는 게 맞기 때문에 new debt 절대 안 된다고 보시면 됩니다. Spending number 2, spending money you may need for closing. 오케이. 다운페이가 예를 들어서 20%인데 보통 일반적으로 저희가 요구하는 건 20% 플러스 최소 10,000불 이상입니다. 클로징 커스트 최소 2달치 정도 PITI 모기지 페이먼트 낼 수 있는 2달치 정도 리저브가 된 걸 보여줘야 되기 때문에 간단하게 손님들이 캐시 얼마 필요해요? 집 살려면 다운페이 말고 얼마 더 필요해요? 오케이. 간단하게 다운페이 하실 금액 플러스 10,000불에서 15,000불 정도만 보여주시면 된다는 거. 3번, 넘버 3, falling behind on your bills. 만약에 지금 모기지 신청하실 분이 크레딧 카드 지금 낼 거 있거나 아니면 내가 집이 다른 게 또 있다. 근데 모기지 페이먼트 지금 지금 너무 상황이 안 좋아서 모기지 페이먼트 못 낼 것 같아요. 디폴 될 것 같아요. forbearance 신청할 것 같아요. 자동차 리스 페이먼트 그 스튜던트 론 같은 거 절대 behind on the payments, credit card bills 절대 안 됩니다. Number 4, maxing out your credit cards. 내가 크레딧 카드가 10개가 있어도 내가 갖고 있는 크레딧 카드 리밋의 50% 아니면 더 좋으면 30% 미만으로 쓰고 갖고 하시면 크레딧 점수는 올라갑니다. 내가 크레딧 카드 리밋이 1000불밖에 안 되는데 800불을 쓰고 매달 다 갚고 한다. 점수 떨어집니다. 손님들한테 알려주셔야 될 건 리밋이 중요한 게 아니라 내 카드 리밋의 몇 %를 쓰고 갖고 있느냐. 그게 가장 중요한 겁니다. Number 5, closing credit card account. 중간에 크레딧 카드 쓰시는 거 다 갚는 건 오케이. 근데 만약에 close를 해보시면 점수가 완전 떨어지십니다. 그러니까 손님들이 나 그러면 점수 올리려면 뭐 해야 돼요? 크레딧 카드 밸런스를 갚아야 되지 어카운트 클로징 하시면 절대 안 됩니다. Number 6, switching jobs. 괜찮습니다. 잡을 옮겨도 괜찮지만 최소한 2년 이상 히스토리는 보여줘야 됩니다. 그러니까 예를 들어서 내가 지금 A 회사에서 일하고 있는데 나 B 회사로 더 좋은 연봉으로 그러니까 옮길 건데 지금 융자 신청하는 과정 중에 되냐 안 되냐? 됩니다. Offer letter 아니면 pay stub만 있으면 switching jobs 가능합니다. Making big purchase number 7. 나 이제 집 사니까 갑자기 막 큰 가구, 막 expensive furnitures 아니면 뭐 차도 바꾸고 싶고 anything 안 됩니다. 아까 처음에 말씀드렸다시피 debt to income ratio, 내 부채 대비 비율, 인컴의 비율이 높아지게 되면 론이 기각되기 때문에 만약에 large furnitures 아니면 뭐 자동차 이런 거 사시고 싶어도 론 끝나고 클로징한 이후에 사시는 건 전혀 문제 없습니다. Number 8, switching banks. 만약에 내가 지금 Bank of America, 체이스를 major deposit 할 은행으로 쓰고 있는데 거기 마음에 안 들어. 다른 은행으로 바꾸고 싶어요. 안 됩니다. 최소한 저희는 최근 prior to 1 month bank statement가 있어야 되기 때문에 만약에 지금 내가 디파짓 해놓은 은행에서 다른 은행으로 바뀌게 되면 그 은행 bank statement가 필요한데 스위칭 뱅크를 해버리면 bank statement가 붕 떠버리기 때문에 it will cause delay closing 또 딜레이 되실 거예요. 그러니까 중간에 뱅크 스위치 하는 거 절대 안 됩니다. Number 9, co-signing on a loan. 나 이제 융자 신청했고 다 나왔으니까 우리 와이프 거, 우리 애들 거, 뭐 자동차 코사인 해도 돼요? 스튜던트 론 코사인 안 됩니다. 마지막 날까지, 그 전날까지, 클로징 전날까지 은행에서는 크레딧을 런할 수 있기 때문에 마지막 날 전날까지도 코사인 안 되고, large purchase 안 되고, 새로운 new debt 다 no. 오케이. Lastly, making big bank deposit. 아까 헤이든 씨가 말씀하셨던 것 같이 디파짓 됩니다. But no cash deposit. 캐시 디파짓 하시는 순간 그 캐시 디파짓 한 돈은 절대 쓸 수가 없습니다. 그러니까 만약에 지금 디파짓 할 large 디파짓이 있으면 융자 신청 전에 다 디파짓 해버리고 그 스테이트먼트 죽이고 새로운 달 스테이트먼트를 쓰거나 아니면 no cash deposit 근데 wire transfer, check deposit 다 됩니다. 그러니까 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 이 정도 지금 기본적인 거는 간단하게 숙지를 하고 계시면 손님들이 first time home buyer, 뭐 second time home buyer, third time home buyer 간에 뭐든 간에 손님들 까먹습니다. 잘 몰라요. 그러니까 자기가 뭐 다 조급돼. 자격도 되거나 다 되기 때문에 다 되는 줄 알아요. 근데 론은 계속 가이드라인이 바뀌고 계속 스트릭트해지기 때문에 우리도 계속 손님들도 저 에이전트 선생님들도 계속 업데이트를 갖고 있어야 됩니다. 그러니까 항상 정답은 없습니다. 저쪽에서 안 되는 건 저희가 될 수 있고 저희가 안 되는 건 어디서 될 수 있어요. 그러니까 요 기본적인 10가지 정도만 숙지하시고 계시다가 어떤 손님들이 갑자기 뭐 쫙 바꿔도 돼요? 아니면 뭐 갑자기 뭐 나 large furniture 사도 돼요? 크레딧 카드 오픈해야 돼요? 코사인 해야 돼요? 이런 거 있으면은 미리 안 된다, 된다 정도는 말씀해 주시고 더 디테일한 거는 론 오피서랑 디테일하게 상담해 보시고 결정하시라고 이렇게 가이드를 해 주시면 훨씬 더 융자 나올 확률이나 뭐 프로세스나 이런 거나 훨씬 더 도움이 많이 되실 거예요. 그러니까 그거 참고하시면 좋을 것 같습니다. 오케이, 그럼 요 정도에서 저희 그 10 things 다 커버해 드렸고 뭐 이제 요거 디테일 관련해서 뭐 Q&A 형식으로 질문 같은 거 있으시면 any questions feel free to let us know now or email us, call us or you can meet us in person as well. 그렇게
Okay,
해가지고
great.
잘 진행하시면 될 것 같습니다.
네. 감사합니다. It's a great appreciated. I think if we have any questions, we can ask now. But I have a quick question, either Hayden or Brian. The
Yes.
number 10, making big bank deposit. If someone deposited cash, is it really critical? Let's say underwriter can reject a case or just
No.
time or.
Okay, so basically
result?
large deposit in cash. So the lender's not gonna reject or decline or withdraw the loan. But basically, if you make a, let's say, $10,000 cash deposit, so basically, if that cash deposit cannot be verified, so in other words, we cannot use that fund as your down payment. 그러니까 10만 불 우리가 다운페이를 해야 되는데 예를 들어서 8만 불이 지금 캐시가 있고 2만 불을 지금 캐시를 넣었어요. 저희 손님이 예를 들어서. 근데 이게 만약에 2만 불 캐시 디파짓이면 내가 총 해야 되는 10만 불 다운 중에 8만 불까지만 인정이 되고 2만 불이 인정이 되지 않습니다. So 예를 들어서 내가 만약에 디파짓 할 돈이 10만 불인데 I have a more than let's say 150K in my account and I had a like 20,000 cash deposit. 그럼 상관이 없어요. 어차피 we're not going to consider that 20% deposit towards your initial deposit. So 그러니까 다른 말로 지금 우리가 디파짓 할 돈이 다 있는 상태에서 추가적으로 뭐 돈이 들어온 캐시 디파짓은 verify 할 필요도 없고 verify를 뭐 은행에서 하라고 해도 안 해도 됩니다. 근데 만약에 우리가 다운페이 해야 될 돈이 10만 불인데 2만 불이 꼭 그 다운페이에 들어가야 되는데 캐시 디파짓이다. 그럼 은행에서 8만 불까지 인정하고 그 2만 불 캐시 디파짓 인정을 안 한다는 거죠. 그러니까 론이 기각되거나 디클라인 되는 문제는 아니지만 2만 불에 대한 캐시 디파짓은 인정될 수가 없다. As a verified asset으로 인정될 수가 없다는 거죠.
Okay, great. Okay, again, appreciate it. I think it's a perfect timing. Again, appreciate the Prime Mortgage and Brian Chung and Hayden Choi. You guys are already very frequent speakers, so we are familiar with the speakers and also Prime Mortgage. And also, Prime Mortgage helped us to sponsor our annual event, bowling night last, when was it? May. So I really appreciate it. Okay, I think that's
My
it.
pleasure.
질문 있습니다.
Okay.
네네.
질문? 네.
질문 드려도 될까요?
네네.
질문하십시오.
네. 아까 설명 감사드리고요. 아까 그 크레딧 카드를 클로즈하는 거는 안 된다고 하셨잖아요. 근데 오픈하는 것도 안 되나요?
오픈하는 거는 괜찮습니다. 근데 이제 크레딧 카드를 클로즈하는 것도 안 되는 건 아니에요. 근데 이제 우리가 이제 크레딧 점수가 왜 중요하냐면 이자율을 판단하는 데도 중요하고 융자가 되냐 안 되냐 판단하는 데 중요하는데 기본적으로 이게 580점, 그러니까 600점 미만인 케이스들은 거의 컨벤셔널로 힘듭니다. FHA는 가능한데 점수가 너무 낮으면 힘들어요. 근데 지금 여기서 말씀드린 지금 3번, 4번, 5번 falling behind on bills, maxing out credit cards, closing a credit card accounts 이게 다 안 된다는 게 아니고 이렇게 했을 경우에는 점수가 분명히 영향을 받습니다. 크레딧 점수에. 3개 회사가 나오잖아요. Experian, Equifax, TransUnion. 3개 회사 중에 저희는 중간 점수 단계를 쓰기 때문에 Equifax에서 800점, TransUnion에서 뭐 예를 들어서 700점, 그다음에 뭐 Experian에서 600점. 그럼 중간 점수 기준으로 가기 때문에 이 1점, 2점 사이로도 손님 이자율을 결정하는 데는 큰 영향을 받습니다. 그러니까 만약에 뭐 크레딧 카드를 굳이 지금 당장 클로징 할 필요가 없는데 뭐 괜히 손님들이 그럼 나 클로즈하면은 그냥 점수 높아지는 거 아니에요? 절대 그건 아니라는 거 말씀해 주시면 되고 오픈하는 거 분명히 점수 낮아질 겁니다. 왜냐? 크레딧 인콰이어 해야 되니까. 저희한테 오시거나 뭐 차 사거나 뭐 백화점 가서 카드 열거나 다 할 때도 소프트 풀이 됩니다. 근데 이제 영향을 받는데 그 영향을 받는 게 미비하지만 예를 들어서 뭐 일주일에 10군데 가서 했다. 오픈하거나 조회를 했다. 그럼 분명히 점수는 낮아질 수 있습니다. 뭐 10%에서 많게는 30%까지 떨어질 수 있기 때문에 그런 점수를 좀 관리하는 차원에서 이제 뭐 오프닝 하는 거나 클로징 하는 거나 이제 크레딧 카드를 리밋을 30% 최대 50%까지 유지하면서 쓰는 거 이런 것들을 좀 알려주시면 손님들이 크레딧 관리하기가 좋으세요. 뭐 나 점수 800점이에요. 문제 없어요. 했는데 와서 띡 보면 700점도 안 된 사람이 있어요. 오토매틱 페이먼트 신청해놨다가 뭐 자동차건 어디서 뭐 크레딧 카드건 잘 안 되거나 이런 거에서 본인도 모르는 사이에 점수가 낮아진 분들, 준비 다 됐고 풀닥인데 크레딧 점수 때문에 안 되시는 분들 많습니다. 그렇기 때문에 이런 거를 미리 알아두셨다가 융자 신청하기 전부터 집 보여주실 때부터 이런 거 관리 괜찮으세요? 크레딧 카드 어떠세요? 뭐 점수는 어떠세요? 기본적으로 물어보시면 이 사람이 론이 되겠다 안 되겠다 정도는 판단이 되시고 아, 저 지금 뱅크럽시 한 지도 얼마 안 됐고 뭐 크레딧 카드 너무 밀려 있고 뭐 안 돼요. 그런 상황은 집 보여주실 필요도 없습니다. 뭐 예를 들어서 뭐 foreclose 한 지 2년밖에 안 됐어요. short sale, bankruptcy 한 지 뭐 3년밖에 안 됐어요. waste of time이다. 안 돼요. 어차피 1금융권에서는 안 되기 때문에 손님들한테 그런 거 집 보여주시거나 뭐 하시기 전에 모기지부터 상담하세요. 뭐 하시면 저희가 다 물어보겠지만 그게 아닌 경우에는 크레딧 점수가 대충 어느 정도 되시는지 만약에 안 좋으면 안 좋은 이유가 뭘까요? 정도는 물어보시고 진행하시는 게 좋습니다. 그래서 4, 5, 6번은 꼭 알아두시면 크레딧 카드 점수 복구하시는 데나 아니면 점수 쌓고 낮아지는 거 주의하시는 데 분명히 도움이 되실 겁니다.
Okay, Brian. Okay, appreciate it. I think the time is up now. Again, maybe also we can invite you sometime later. Okay. Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. 감사합니다.
you.
감사합니다.